Good afternoon. Welcome back to the B&H Virtual Event Space. You are tuned in to music photography tips for photographing musicians on and off stage, creating a visual legacy, hosted by Nanlite. So a huge thank you to Nanlite for hosting today. And for that, I'd like to welcome the man of the hour, the awesome Jeremy Saffer. Jeremy, what's going on, man?
Living life.
Another
Thank you for
day.
having me. I appreciate it.
Now, of course, it's great to welcome you back this time. As I had told you, I get to relax. I don't have to worry about firing questions at you. I get to be a viewer today. So, little bonus for me, we're going to be learning some really cool stuff. For those of you out there watching, we are going to take some Q&A at the end. So if you do have any questions, feel free to get it into the comments section if you're joining us on Vimeo or YouTube, or if you're right here at Zoom, we have the wonderful Q&A module. Don't wait until the end. We will answer it at the end, but feel free to ask it anytime during the presentation. We'll make sure to tie that up. So I'm going to get out of Jeremy's way here and let him do what he does best. And I'll see you in a bit for some Q&A.
Awesome. Cool. So it's a slideshow. So I'm going to boot up the slideshow and get it rolling and then share the screen with you. Give me one moment and I will have it ready to go. Awesome. Welcome to Creating a Visual Legacy, photographing musicians on and off stage. So my story as a photographer, I'm going to give you the very TLDR version, the very shortened version. I started as a photographer who took pictures of bands that my band opened up for. I got the attention of the local promoter who put on all the metal and hardcore shows locally in Western Massachusetts and started shooting all of his shows. And then he worked for a bigger company that put on a lot of the shows in the New England area, and I started working with them, shooting all of their shows. I had no idea what I was doing. I was shooting on full auto. And at that time, I was just getting more and more into it. I wanted to go to Berklee School of Music for music production and engineering, which I did. And I ended up hating it and shifting to photography, going to the Hallmark Institute of Photography to learn how to shoot beyond auto, of course. So I jumped off a tour, went to school, jumped right back on tour. And from there, I kind of started doing more the portraiture stuff, more the photo shoot stuff. I still shoot concerts, but over the past 20 years, and this is my 20th year as a photographer, the photo shoot to live photo ratio has changed significantly where I'm doing more photo shoots than live. While I do still shoot concerts, uh, portraiture is definitely my main thing nowadays. And here I am, 20 years later, still doing the same stuff. So let's dive right into concert photography. So concert photography tips. The general rule when you're shooting concerts is first three, no flash. That's the general rule when you're shooting a show. If you're unsure of the rules, you can always ask security, someone at the venue, hey, what are the rules? Can I use flash? Is it first three? And sometimes it's different. Sometimes certain bands like Rammstein, for example, because they use fire, you shoot songs like 3, 4, 5 instead of 1, 2, 3. Anyway, first three, no flash is the general rule. But in certain circumstances, you can be given special permission to shoot beyond the first three, shooting different areas or given another set of rules that apply to only you. But you want to make absolutely sure everybody knows. You want to make sure security knows. You want to make sure the head of pit and head security know, because you never want a situation where you're supposed to be shooting the whole set and the third song they're ushering you out. Recently, well, not recently, like a couple of years ago, I was shooting for Alice Cooper, and for Alice Cooper, uh, two security guards knew that I was shooting the whole set, but one didn't. The one who didn't started, getting handsy, trying to push me out of the pit. Nita, the guitarist, during the show, she's playing and tapping this dude on the head like this until he turned around and she had pointed at me and gave me a thumbs up. And like, thank you, Nita, but that's something you never want. You never want to be an interruption of the show. You don't want any attention on you whatsoever. You just want to shoot the show. If shooting without flash in a dark lit venue, you want a low f-stop lens, something that goes wide open, something that hits 2.8 or below, so you can actually get some shots. There's some venues out there, some like darkly lit bars where you're not going to get a shot if you're not using flash. And if you do use flash, make sure to use diffusion and drop that shutter speed. And let's talk about flash for a second. There's a whole faux pas that you cannot use flash in concert photography. You should not use flash in concert photography. You are not a professional if you use flash in concert photography. Guess what I use? Flash. And I've used it my entire career. If I know I need it as a fill, I'll always use it, but I only use it in a specific way. I always have diffusion on it. I'm always shooting it at like 10 to 20% power just as a fill light to add that front lighting just a little bit. And I'll show you guys examples in a bit. And I'll drop my shutter speed down so you get all the ambient lighting, you get all the stage lighting in there, rather than shooting with a hard flash right at somebody and having it look like it was taken at CBGB's in 1970, you know? Do not bring your giant backpack into the photo pit. You'll swing around, you'll hurt other people, not a good time. Don't do it. Watch your back, crowd surfers hurt. Work with security to make the barricade a safe environment for everybody, and that's really important. The last thing you want to do is get somebody injured. Timed lighting can make or break a photo, and what I mean by that is in music, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. The lighting does the same. The lighting is timed, and it's something many people don't think about. If you're watching a show, even on YouTube, just look up any concert video, you'll see it goes, red, green, blue, white, red, green, blue, white, red, green, blue, white. You want that shot on the white, you just wait for it. You know exactly when it's going to hit, you get it. And whether the band's doing something awesome when the white hits, that's things lining up. But counting lighting, knowing when the lighting's going to hit, where it's going to hit, that's an important thing to be thinking about while you're shooting. Try different techniques as much as possible. Get different looks as much as you can to differentiate your work from others. We all have seen when Warped Tour starts, rest in peace, Warped Tour, we miss you, and the photos start hitting from the photographers and all of them look exactly the same. There's no difference except for those few photographers who do something different. And those are the ones who stand out. And you got to think when you're shooting a show, there's people next to you shooting the show usually a bunch of photographers, and you want to do something where, especially if you're not shooting with flash, you have no light control, the lights provided for you, you want to do something to really make your work stand out. So as you shoot, try to find different ways to make your work stand out with different techniques, which can be as simple as post-processing and color grading using specialty lenses or effect lenses, doing different compositions, shooting Dutch rather than shooting straight on, just doing something different that everybody else around you isn't doing to make your work stand out a little bit. Bring a variety of lenses to every show if you can. If you have a bunch of different lenses, bring all of them. You never know what you're going to deal with in terms of setup when the show is in front of you. If you're shooting a large arena, make sure you have a longer lens. If shooting small venue and club shows with barricade, make sure you have some wide lenses. If shooting clubs with no barricade, long lenses with very open wide f-stops are great for shooting through crowds if needed. So that 85 1.4, that Sigma lens, when you're shooting, you can shoot between people and get that focus. That Canon 1.2, another great lens to do that with. All right. Never get on stage without the permission from the band and security, knowing you're supposed to be there and have permission to be there. The last thing you want to do is get tackled by a big beefy security dude, injuring you, scaring the band, scaring the crew, and probably breaking everything that you have on you camera-wise. Shooting on two bodies is definitely faster than changing lenses. It's up to your preference, whatever you want to do. I know a lot of people who have two cameras going at the same time. For me, I'm a lens changer. I'll have a slew of lenses, constantly changing them. If you have an assistant off to the side, which I usually do, work on a hand signal for lens changes, gear, whatever you may need. So with Tara, my assistant and better half, she knows which lens is which. This is the 70 to 24 to 90. This is the lens baby. This is the 85 1.4. We have different hand signals for everything. If I point to the battery, she has a battery ready to go. So I walk over to her and she can do the lens switch with me, which saves me so much time. If you don't and shouldn't always have to shoot wide open. Everyone thinks that you have to shoot at 2.8, 1.4, 1.2, or 0.95 if you can. And while those shots are great for getting your subject away from everything else, it's really important to get those shots where you can see the whole stage, see the background, see everything. So don't be afraid to do concert photography at 5.6, at f8, and shoot a little more closed to get that focus rather than having all your shots at max depth of field. You don't always need front lighting. Backlit and silhouette shots can sometimes be the best shots of the set. The main focus might be the vocalist, but always take photos of the other members of the band. If it's a band or not, sometimes you're going to shoot a performer who is, I'm a performer and these are nameless backing people, but it's always important to get those shots because you never know where those photos can go. Those are things you can sell to endorsees like drum companies, guitar companies, whatever else. So always get shots of everybody if you can. Shooting continuous or multi-shot is good for spray and pray, but you'll often miss the shots you want to get. Anytime I shoot continuous, and I very rarely do it other than testing it out, I always notice the shot I want is in between these two frames. I missed it. And if I'm shooting single shot, I always nail exactly the shot I want. So up to you how you want to shoot. That's definitely a preference thing. For me, single shot is the way to go. I feel like when you're doing spray and pray, you're going to miss a lot in between your frames. When you're approved to shoot the show, it's always good to reach out to whoever you worked with to get your approval, to ask if there's anything you should look for during the show or make sure to get from the show. Oftentimes you'll get that feedback of, oh, you know what? You're supposed to shoot the first three. In the fifth song, something really cool happens. Let's make sure we get you that access to shoot that fifth song or beyond. Or you know what, in the second song, there's this pyro hit that happens at exactly this time. Make sure you're shooting wide and from the back because it's going to look killer. All of those things are great to know before you get to the show. Look to capture fan interaction or band interaction with your lens, but don't interrupt the show. Don't wave at the band and try to get their attention. The goal as a concert photographer is basically to be a ghost ninja. They don't know you're there. How did you even get that shot? I didn't even see you. That's what you want. We're in that stage black, blending in like you're not even there. You're a shadow with a camera. Concert photography lens tips. Let's talk about some lenses. So a wide zoom is great for full stage shots and zooming in to double and single artist shots. My favorite concert photography lens when I was shooting Canon was a 16-35. I used it almost like 80% of the time. It was great. Standard zoom. You can get part of the stage zooming in to get the half body detail shots. For that, I use the 24-90, which is the Leica lens. You can't really get the full stage if the stage is very wide with 24, but it's great for getting that zoomed in shot. You can even get shots of the drummer because it has that 90 on it rather than 24-70, which is awesome. 24-70 is the perfect standard zoom for that. Telephoto zoom, if you're shooting large arenas or you want to get drummer shots, you want headshots, a telephoto zoom is perfect. The reason I'm mentioning zooms is, for me, it's much easier to zoom in and out to get different shots rather than you're in a barricade. There's a barricade here, there's a stage here. You don't have a lot of leeway to move forward and back. So prime lenses aren't something that I would prefer over zoom lenses unless I'm trying to shoot wide open and I want that 1.4, 1.2, 0.95. Wide prime gives a lot of depth while shooting wide open for full stage shot, where you can really hone in on whatever you're focusing on and everything else slowly goes out, which is great. Standard prime, separating the subject from everything else on stage while shooting wide open. Here's where like the 50.95 is amazing. You zoom in on, you get your person, you focus, and you see them, and everything else is nice and soft. The 85 1.4, also great for that. Telephoto prime, they're vital for the front of house shots. And what that means is you're shooting from the middle of the venue, from the soundboard, way back there. Hopefully you have your monopod with you and you can not have to hold the giant lens, but there's a lot of shots, a lot of shoots with big arena shows where you're shooting front of house. Effect lenses and effect filters. So I use a lot of lens baby lenses, and they give you a completely different look to your shots. Another tip I don't have written in here is shooting manual when you're shooting concerts. If you shoot a few concerts manual and you really get a good idea of that, especially if there's a tilt shift involved, you're just going to nail it so much more when you're doing portraiture. Because if you're shooting a moving subject and you're tilting and focusing at the same time, and you nail that shot, the more you practice, the more you're able to nail that shot. When the person is in front of you not moving, it's so much easier. So here's a shot at f4 within this moment, and you see Maria's in focus and all the blood girls behind her are in focus. This shot wouldn't be as successful if I was shooting this wide open, she's in focus and everything else was a blur. And then here's a little bit of variation. Here's Chris shot with the 85 1.2, where his hand is kind of a little bit blurry. The focus is in his eyes. The background's blurry. And for this shot, I really wanted to get the background in there a little bit more. So I'm shooting at 5.6. And, you have Chris in there. You have the off crop, so it shows the background. And that's where text would go when I was shooting. This was for editorial. So on the left side, I figured, okay, that's where the text is going to go in the page. So I'll often shoot with off crops. Kill switch engage, blending lighting, using ISO 400 at f5.6 at 1/10 of a second with flash. And because I dropped my shutter speed down to 1/10, bleeds in all that yellow lighting around him. And it also has him in focus in the shot. He's moving fast. If I didn't have a flash, he would be a red and yellow blur on the stage. You wouldn't see anything but a silhouette. And this shot is much more powerful having that flash there, that fill flash, to really lock him in that neutral lighting. Camelot, blending lighting, again, using ISO 400 f4.0 at 1/10 of the flash. Neither of these shots would exist without the flash, and that's why people shouldn't be scared to use flash when they have permission to do so or when they're allowed to, but make sure you put diffusion on it. If I was shooting this straight on them and shooting at 1/100th, you would see his forehead and face and everything else would be black. But because I dropped my shutter speed, you see everything else around him. You're bleeding in the ambient lighting, and you have everything in there. If I didn't have my flash, the lighting is so dark you wouldn't see Tommy on the left, and on the right you would not see Thomas's face. You would just see hair and movement. So having that fill flash is what made it work. Here's a shoot with Ghost. My flash is so low, you can't really tell I'm even using it on the left side. But the reason I'm using it is to get that white light on him. I really want that neutral light rather than him to be soaked in blue. But I want both looks because I want as many looks as possible. So I'm quickly switching between using flash and using no flash, and switching over to the Nameless Ghoul, shooting at wide open so the mask is in focus and the hand goes out. Get photos of the drummer. Do you know how many people go to shows and don't shoot the drummer? Or how many drummers complain about never having photos because they're so far back? That's where I really use the 24 to 90, 85, and 70 to 200 to really lock in those drummer shots. And they're always great to get because the drummer will need them, the drum companies will need them, the band will need them, because not a lot of people take pictures of the drummer. Nora even wrote a song about it called Nobody Takes Pictures of the Drummer. Great song, check it out. A little fan interaction. A fan was handing over a rose to Papa Emeritus. I got a photo of the handoff, and I have a whole series. It's like 10 to 12 photos, but these two are the greatest example of him reaching out and then him having that rose on stage. And the fans were stoked that I got something like that because the fan who gave the rose to him watches my work and saw these photos and was very, very excited for that. It's always a cool story to tell. Photographer interaction. Here's Lacuna Coil and Slipknot, and these weren't planned or anything. It was just I was in the photo pit, they saw me, and this is what they did. Of course, I was hanging out with the band prior to the show. They knew I was going to be there taking photos, but this interaction is what makes the shot. If they were looking wherever else or doing whatever else, it wouldn't be as cool. It wouldn't be as eye-catching. Black and white can be as powerful as color. Don't be afraid to do a black and white shot. And also, those shots where the artist is not necessarily playing or singing can sometimes be some of the best shots of the show. Like this, to me, gives a like kind of Universal Monsters kind of vibe, and I love it. And making it black and white and high contrast really gave that vibe. Another black and white shot, low contrast, with Maria and Randy, really giving you this real cool shot where the original is just red washed and it's so boring, and making it black and white really gives the attention to them rather than to everything is red. Fully backlit, again, within this moment, having those great silhouette shots. And if you get a chance to photograph in this moment, they do those amazing, amazing silhouette shots every show, and they're great to capture. And here's another example of in this moment doing a fully backlit shot with Randy with the devil horns, and just such a perfect shot that he loved and used a whole bunch. Now here's something with Alice Cooper where I was shooting using the 24 to 90. I was watching the lighting. Red spot, blue sides, white up, and the white had front lighting, lighting from above, lighting from the sides. It kind of looked like studio lighting. It looks like what I use for studio lighting. So I was just waiting for the white, taking a shot, waiting for the white, taking a shot, waiting for the white, taking a shot. And as I was waiting for the white, Alice looked right into my lens for this shot. And it looks like it could have been a studio shot, but it's not. This is him on stage performing in this split second, just nailing the shot, nailing the timing, counting the lighting, red, green, blue, white, red, green, blue, white, and nailing it on white. Shooting a lot of variety with Elon. wanting to get as much variety as possible. The shot in the middle is shot with a lens baby. The shot on the top left is shot just wide open with a 1.4. The shot on the bottom left is shot super wide. I think it's the 14 to 24. The shot on the bottom right shooting with the 24-90. The shot on the top right getting that silhouette shot, getting as much variety as possible with this shoot. And that's the goal. You want as much variety as possible. You don't want to take the same shot over and over and over again. Using effect lenses, these are both shot with the Lens Baby Edge 50, getting that focus to go right towards your subject's face, and that's exactly what I wanted here. And again, it takes some practice to do it, but once you can nail it, it's worth it because you get these type of shots, which I think are incredible. Front of house shooting from front of house and getting the whole crowd in there, getting the whole stage in there. You can still tell what's going on and what's happening, especially if you're a fan of the genre. This is the final Black Sabbath tour, getting that shot of Ozzy giving the final thank you and the band taking their final bow. Always a great thing to get. And if Black Sabbath could come back, we would appreciate it, please. Color grading. So here's something I do with some shots where the middle shot is the original shot, and then I color graded so only the reds would pop through on the left side, and on the right I just did a colder color grade, and I like the two pretty equally. I don't know, let me know in the comments which one you like, left or right or middle best. Middle being the original, right being cold, left being red. I just like giving these options, and when I send these to Maria, to the band, I send them all three versions and they use whatever they want, and they used the two on the left and right. Creating a visual legacy, photographing musicians off stage. Before the shoot, tips. So we're going to walk through the whole shebang here. Always research the band prior to the shoot. You never want to go in blind, and sometimes I make the mistake of not doing that. So I was doing a shoot with Tarek Agrin earlier this year, and I was shooting the four of them, doing a bunch of shots, and then I did one set of the two dudes. Realizing after the shoot that those two dudes are the band and the other two dudes were hired on for that tour only and aren't even in the band. And if I did the research I should have done, I would have known, okay, the band are these two dudes. These other two should be in one set. Everything else I do should be these two guys, and that's it. Always research the band, have an idea of what they look like, have an idea of what they do photo-wise, have an idea of their feel, of what they're doing, of who the main guy is, because sometimes the lead singer is not the front person of the band. If you know the shoot location, plan out where you want to do your set and the best way to light that location. So for example, if I'm going to the Palladium in Worcester, which I've been to 100 times a year for the past 20 years, essentially, not literally, but quite a bit, I would know, okay, we're going to shoot this on the floor. This is how I'm going to light it. Or, oh, we're going to shoot it in this room over here. This is how I'm going to light it. We're going to shoot it on stage with the curtains, and this is how I'm going to light the curtains. I always have an idea of what I'm going to do. Always knowing, okay, depending on where I'm shooting, here is how I can light it. If you don't know the shoot location, at least go in knowing some lighting setups you want to do. Never go in without a plan. So if I'm going to some venue I've never seen before, but I know the band, I know they're a dark, evil metal band, I'll say, okay, I want to do something dark and shadowy. I want to have lighting from above, just straight down single light to have that really dark and brooding kind of shot. I want to do something with light coming up, that little horror kind of look, maybe that campfire lighting, the campfire store lighting. I want to do some reds. Reds will work really good with them. I always have that in my head before I even show up. So when I get there, I at least have an idea of what I'm going to do. If the shoot is at a show, know that after doors open, your available locations to do a shoot is severely limited to anywhere fans are not. So if you can, request the shoot to be before doors, and that's what I always do. And I'm always very blunt. I'm like, look, man, after doors, we don't have this entire venue to shoot in. After doors, we can shoot in that super tiny little dressing room that you're in that's painted green and has all of your clothes, all of your bags, all of your food. What do you guys want to do? What do you guys think will look better? And usually you're able to do the shoot before doors, which is great. If doing multiple shoots in one location with different artists, make sure you have a rough idea of how to separate the shoots with variety and lighting or location. And that's what I do a lot. I'll go to a show and I'll shoot 2 or 3 bands that are on that tour rather than just one. So it's important to differentiate between the shoots so they don't look like they're the same shoot. So I'll do lighting changes. I'll shoot one set here and one set over here to make it a little bit different. Either way, I want something to make it not the same as the shoot that came before it. Always plan for something to go wrong. things are going to go wrong. It happens. Bring extras of everything and learn how to work quickly. You never know when a light's going to go down, when you forgot to charge something, when you forgot a memory card, when you forgot the lens you wanted and you have to use a different lens, when you forgot something to put your mod on the light so you can't use your softbox and you have to use hard light. Those things happen. Roll with the punches, but learn how to work quickly. Very important. Always get test shots of your setup with someone prior to the band arriving on set. So if I'm going into a photo shoot location, I'm setting up everything, I'm having Tara or a crew member or whoever else stand in while I get the lighting set up, test shot, make sure it's 100%. So when the band walks in, it's as simple as, okay, I'm ready. You guys stand here, we're good to go, let's go. Learn how to set up quickly and break down your equipment in the most efficient way possible. If you have an assistant, train them in how to do it with you. It's very important. There's sometimes where we go into a shoot and we don't have access to the building until like a half an hour before the shoot. So we have to set up and get our test shots as quickly as possible. And that shoot is sometimes goes right up into doors. The other day we did a shoot that went right up into doors with Max Sabbath and Cybertronian Spree, or Cybertronic Spree. And it's one of those things where doors were at 6:30. The shoot was supposed to be at 2 o'clock. It ended up starting at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock. Started at 5 o'clock, 1 hour before doors, and we ended the shoot at 5:45. And we had to break down, have all our gear off of the floor of the venue where all the fans will run to when doors open, have everything packed up and out as quickly as possible so they could open up doors. Thankfully, we had crew there that could help us move our bags out, but it's never a fun time when that happens. Before the shoot, more tips. Always expect the planned time of the shoot to change and shift both with time allotted and time started. Yep, like that. That happens all the time. In my 20 years of being a photographer, I think 1 out of every 20 or 1 out of every 50 shoots is perfectly on schedule. Usually you'll have a set, I have an hour with a band, and then it turns to 30 minutes. Or you have 30 minutes with a band and it turns into 5 minutes. Or you have 10 minutes with a band and it turns into 35 seconds. That happens. Very rarely do you get more time with a band. It's usually less and shifting later and closer to doors, should you be shooting before doors. That's the curse of being a photographer shooting on location at a venue. Always happens. They have a lot going on that day. If your planned shoot is at 1 o'clock for an hour, sometimes it's going to take place at 5 o'clock for 30 minutes, and we're going to have a good example of how a day goes with a full walkthrough of a day in a bit. Do a verbal walkthrough of the shoot with everybody so they know what's going to happen and when. So when a band shows up and they walk into set, I give them kind of a walkthrough of what we're going to do. I'll say like, okay, we're going to start with strobes. We're shooting lighting from above. We're going to do 3-point lighting. I'm going to add a backlight. It's going to be purple. Then we're going to switch to red. Then we're striking all of that, bringing in tubes, bringing in LEDs. We're going to do a set of group shots with the LEDs with fog. Then we're going to do an X in the eyes as a catch light with fog as well. And we're going to do solos for that. We're going to do 2 rounds of solos on 2 different lenses. Then we're going to do group shots with this. You get the point. So they have an idea of what's going on. So when you start moving things, when you're doing the shoot, they're not like, are we done yet? Are we done yet? Are we done yet? Which sometimes happens. They have a lot to do on a show day. So it's important you do that verbal walkthrough and they know what to expect. Be flexible in working with whatever will work with the artist and their crew in terms of space, time, and any ideas they have to make things run more smoothly. So we did a shoot with Dragon Force like a week or 2 ago. And we walked in, we wanted to shoot on the floor, but bands were sound checking. So we were going to shoot where they're doing the VIP meet and greet. And we just had to move things around and shift time in order to do the photo shoot. We were able to do it in that room. And then they did the meet and greet, right next to it as we were breaking down the gear before doors open. But again, just making sure to work with them, making sure they get what they need and gets everybody happy. You have the space you need, they have the space they need, and you get the shots you need and that they need. Always show up at least 2 hours prior to the shoot so you have enough time to get in, scout, set up, get your test shots in before the shoot while having wiggle room for any necessary changes to your plan, which does happen quite often. If you can, 2 hours early. If you don't have access to the building, it happens, but I always show up 2 hours early, especially if I don't know the location. If I don't know the location at all, I'll show up even earlier than that so I have time to scout and really look at different spots that we can use. If you have a specific idea you haven't tried before, you want to do something crazy with lighting you haven't tried, you want to do some effect you haven't tried before, you want to do some concept you haven't done before, test shoot it with a friend or an assistant at least a day before or more prior to the shoot, so you can troubleshoot it, adjust it, lock it in, know exactly what you want, and then immediately recreate it when you get to that location, so you don't have to do any guesswork. You have it locked in your head and you know exactly what you want and how to get it. During the shoot tips. When shooting bands, don't shoot wide open. You shouldn't be shooting bands at f2.8 because the person in front will be in focus. Everybody else will be blurry. So f8 and above tends to be my sweet spot for groups of 4 or more. Like if I'm shooting Slipknot, I'm probably shooting at f13, making sure everybody's in focus. But if you pose them really tightly together, not Slipknot, but smaller bands, you can usually get away with f5.6, groups of 5 and below. I would say I could probably get away with 5.6 pretty easily. Bigger groups, I'm usually at f8 and above. Always introduce yourself and any assistant you have, letting them know what they'll be doing. So for example, if Tara's on set with me, which she always is, I introduce her and I let them know she's going to be doing behind the scenes on my phone. So they're not wondering why this crazy girl with long green hair is running around with a cell phone doing this, getting these great behind the scenes effect videos and just swinging a phone around. So they know what's going on. Oftentimes, bands will have crew that can help you accomplish the shoot. Don't be afraid of asking for help if you need it, be it loading in, loading out, location options, whatever else. If you're shooting against a stage and all the stage lights are on and you need them off, don't be afraid to ask them to turn it off if they can. They might be aiming lights, they might not be able to, but always ask for help if you need it, because sometimes you'll get it from the crew. Letting the entire team know the goal of the shoot is very important. Knowing that it's for a big magazine, a small feature, a cover, endorsements, for the band directly gives the band, the crew, the idea of how much time you need. And if they hired you, they generally know what the shoot is for, but not always. Like I did a shoot with Megadeth, set up the light, they came into set, we take a few shots. Dave's like, so what is this shoot for? And I'm like, it's for you, dude. And that changed the shoot from like, cool, we have a magazine shoot, to, oh, yo, we got to get this. We want to get this. Check out this location over here. I want to get some shots doing this. I want to get some shots doing this. You know, it really opened it up, him knowing that it was their photo shoot. When shooting, it's important to call out what you were doing and why. So if I'm doing a light change, I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to go over to this light and lower it a little bit, or hey, I'm going to pump up this light a little bit, or I'm going to change the lens real quick, 1 second. So I'm not just walking off the set and I'm wondering why I'm walking off the set. If I'm adding smoke, I'm going to let them know so they don't just see smoke and wonder if I just set them on fire or something. Important to let them know what's going on. During the shoot tips. When shooting, it's important to keep the band pumped. Your reaction to what you're seeing in back of camera or in your eye affects their action as subjects in front of your lens. So when I'm shooting, if something looks really cool and I'm on as photographer, I'll say like, you know, hey, this doesn't work. Let's change this. Dude, this looks killer. This looks awesome. Hold that. That looks great. And they get more pumped as you get pumped. Your energy affects their energy. Always try to get an extra set or two of photos if you can. You never know who might need them. Sometimes you'll do a shoot with a band for a magazine and it will turn into, oh, is there anything you didn't use? Yeah, this whole set we didn't end up using. Our band needs it. Can we buy it from you? Can the label buy it from you? You never know when that can happen. So always try to get an extra set or two, meaning moving a light, doing something different, changing the lighting color, doing a different location, having that one extra set to work with should the magazine need it or should no one need it, it can potentially go elsewhere. If there's a show after the shoot, a concert after the shoot, that's a great time when the band is in front of you and you're wrapping up. Should you want to ask questions about the show and extend your allowance of the show beyond the standard first 3, should you wish? Going back to that Dragon Force shoot, I was doing the shoot. Herman's like, "Are you staying for the show?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll be there. Do you want me to shoot the first 3?" He's like, "No, no, no. We want you to shoot the whole set. There's dragons that come up at this time. There's this that happens this time. At this time we switch from this type of music to disco metal and disco balls go crazy. We have more confetti than any other band in the universe happening at this time. We're going to get you a set that shows you all that. Shoot the whole set, please. We're going to get you a special pass and talk to security and make sure you have that access." So in having that interaction, I ended up shooting the whole set, getting them a bunch of stuff, and yeah, it was an awesome show. Make sure there's not a lot of lag between changes in lighting during your shoot. Prioritize the biggest change first and shortest change last, especially when time's running low. So what I mean by that is if you're doing something that's going to take you 10 minutes to change between sets, have that change first and let them know. You shouldn't do a 10-minute change between sets. It should be like 5 minutes or less, FYI. But if you're doing those changes that are like 30-second changes, do those last. Those are quick and easy changes. So make sure to prioritize your lighting changes or lens changes or whatever it is. So the longest to the shortest. Get as much variety as possible in the shortest amount of time possible. Meaning you want to shoot as much variety as possible, get the horizontals, the verticals, extra room here, extra room on the sides, different off crops, wide shots, tight shots, solo shots, group shots, getting as much variety as you can. Always ask the band, is there anything you want to do or anything you need? Because that can always turn into, you know what, we got our new guitars from ESP today. If you take photos of us with them, we can get you paid through ESP and get you connected with them. And that's a new contact for you to start working with ESP, which is great. You always want those opportunities. Or actually, there's this other magazine in Europe that's a non-compete to your US magazine. Could you do a cover shot of us with different lighting for that? You get another cover, you get a new contact for a magazine you can work for, and you get paid twice. Take serious and fun shots, though some bands are like, this is how we have fun. This is us having fun. This is our happy face, especially in metal. But try to get some fun shots. Try to get some goofy shots if you want to. If there's a concept you want to shoot, make sure to collaborate with the band prior to the shoot. You can't have a band walk in and you go, so listen, we're going to hang a bunch of playing cards and spray blood on you. And you ever see, you can't do that on television with the slime. We're going to do that. It's going to be great. It's important that if there's any sort of concept, it fits with the band's image and with what they want to do. So always talk to them prior to going to a conceptual shoot. And the way you do that is whoever you set up the shoot with, you talk with them about it. Always direct the subject. Use mirroring techniques to avoid confusion. Who's left? My left, your left? So when I'm posing, I'll say, turn your face to your right a little bit, down a little bit, up a little bit. Take your body and twist it to your left a little bit, knowing that my right is their left. Lean in toward me just a little bit, chin down a little bit right there. Hold that. That's the shot, and I'll take it. Having that visual in front of them, knowing how much I want them to move, exactly how I want them to move, makes them do exactly what I want them to do. Whereas if I said, turn your face to the left, they would just go, okay, whoop. They don't know where I want them to stop. So having that mirroring technique really helps a lot in posing. Pro tip, conceptual shots based on an album or a music video have a shelf life, but they capture a specific part of a band's career. And there's a lot of times I do that. So here's Maria Brink getting that shot from the single, which is still their biggest song. And I have the photo from their biggest song, which is really awesome. Getting those time-specific shots. Or those tour shots where you get all four singers of all four bands together. Always a really cool shot to get if you can get it, because it's not going to happen again. These four are likely not going to be in the same space at the same time or on another tour together. Avatar, one shoot with 6 different looks. Here's a shot where I'm using 3-point lighting, 1-point lighting, shot with a red background, shot with a deep background, shot with LEDs, fun shots, goofy shots, straight shots, and this is for a big magazine cover. And the idea was to get as much variety as possible, and all this was done in 1 hour. So again, if you work efficiently and quickly and make your changes as quick as possible, you're able to knock out something like this in an hour and get all those different looks. So here's the serious shot. Here's the fun shot. And then here's the cover for Faker magazine. And actually, that's my shot of Asking Alexandria in the corner too. Awesome. So knowing this was for a cover, I'm leaving this headspace above him. So the graphic designer can either extend as needed, extend the background as needed, or place the logo right there, which is exactly what happened in the final cover. Have a pure black background for background replacement and key covers. So here's just corn on a black background. This is the final edit. And then it goes to a different company that does all the extra editing and graphic design and compositing to turn it into Hawkins, whatever. Stranger Things, yes. Here's a shot of Lizzie. Again, black background, final image, 3-point lighting. And that 3-point lighting is important to get that separation from the background, having those 2 rim lights behind her at 45-degree angle. So you have that rim of lighting around them. So it's very easy for them to cut Lizzie out and put her on a different background or build a background behind her. And there's the final shot. And I'm sorry, Papa Emeritus 3, we did kill you. So these are 3 different shots composited together, and then the background's composited in. So it's important to have that separation so they're able to pop each individual piece out and composite it together into this, and then add that little rat on the E. So here's an example of a photo shoot day for me. 8 a.m., I'm prepping for pickup, packing up all my gear, getting it ready to go, getting all the cases ready by the door. And this is a shoot in LA, so I'm not at home. I'm off in Los Angeles. 10 a.m., pickup. 12 p.m., we arrive at the venue, we load in all our gear. At 12:30, I'm doing some test shots with gear. I'm walking around the venue, taking photos, scouting different areas. At 2 p.m., I'm doing a walk and talk with Tobias, the lead singer, and we're catching up on what our latest black metal album excellence is, but also talking about, hey, I don't want to shoot this location. I want to avoid this. If you do this, light it not that way because I don't want to see that in the back. Just giving me that kind of important intel before the shoot. 3 p.m. was the planned shoot time. The idea was to shoot from 3 to 4 and get 3 different looks as quickly as possible. At 4:45, we did a shoot with natural light in this amazing hallway, and we shot for 5 minutes. At 6:30, he came up with his bat wings, and we shot for 5 minutes upstairs in the venue. At 10:30 p.m., I was able to shoot the full band, and I had 10 minutes because we shot 2 different sets, one a little bit brighter in a hallway and one a little bit darker. So I shot for all of 20 minutes. Instead of it being 3 to 4, it was 4:45 to 10:30. 10:45, we wrapped up, we packed. 11:15, we were out of the venue and on the road. At 12:30, we were back at the place we were staying. We loaded our gear in and we passed out because it was a long day, and those happen. There are very long day photo shoots. So here's the scout. Nope, let me go back. Sorry. That's the scout, me looking at different locations. That's one of my assistants, Matt. There's Tara. You can see where these shots take place. The top left is where the Batwing and full band set took place. The middle kind of right, or no, sorry, the second shot on the left to the middle where Matt's walking down, that's where we did the band shot. And the hallway where you see all those windows is where we did the natural light shot. And I did 3 different types of lighting. We did natural light, strobe with the bat wings, and LEDs for the group shots. And you'll see all of that in a moment. So here's behind the scenes. This is a 4-light setup with 3-point lighting, 1 light up front, 2 lights on the side, all neutral, and then a light gelled. These are all pro photos. A light gelled shooting back to add that red behind him. There's the shot with the red. I liked it better in purple, so I just shifted it to purple, and that is the cover. Here is the natural light shot that we did. We had to get it before the light went down because it was February, March, something like that, and that sun was setting. So knocking that out at 4:45 was vital. And here's the shot, getting those dark shadows, getting those side lit kind of look. And there's the cover. And then for this one, it was 10:30 or 10:02 at night. The lighting was only coming from above. So you see those lights above them, that's all that was there. If I didn't have any front lighting, they would be blobs of darkness and a shiny hat. So having those 2 Pavo tubes, those are the Nanlite Pavo Tube C series, and just popping them on enough where they're fully lit evenly with the lighting above them at the same color temperature, there's the shot you get, and that fills in everything. Just those 2 tubes are all I needed, and it was perfect. And there's the shot. All right, tips for shooting an endorsement. It's important to know the products you're being paid to photograph. Do some research on them. So if you want to shoot guitars, it's important to know pickup strings, tuners, bridge, neck, head, all of those things. Very, very important. If you want to shoot drums, knowing what a throne is, knowing what a skin is, knowing what a shell is, all of those things are vital. Shoot to equally complement the artist as well as the product for a successful endorsement shot. Try to bring out the character of the subject with your direction, with your posing, with your excitement, trying to get them into the shoot. So here's a very, very, very small and difficult endorsement shot to get, a guitar pick, because it's this big. So for this, I'm shooting at f/22 because I want him in focus. If I shot even at f/16, you'll get the pick and a blurry face. Wide open, you'll get the pick and nothing else because it's such a small item. So shooting very, very tight on that one was vital. Shooting Hellhammer of Mayhem, one of my favorite drummers. I did a lot of work with Vic Firth. So for the backlighting, I'm using Pavo tubes here to get that kind of bluish, purplish, mayhemy black metal kind of color that's known for their album covers, and putting that behind him while having neutral light on him. One of the coolest shoots I got to do, I got to meet Vic Firth, the actual Vic Firth, before he passed away. And this is Vic Firth holding, sticks that are a tribute to the Metal and Hardcore Fest, which is also a big part of, something I've been a part of almost 20 years. So meant a lot to me, and amazing getting to meet Vic Firth. Killswitch Engage. They were tasked with doing an endorsement shot for acoustic guitars. They are not a soft band. And they're like, look, if we're going to do an acoustic shot, we have to make it as epic and metal as possible. So we went behind my studio, found a little kind of creepy area with a little bit of woods, because they're very much a band that takes photos in the woods. If you look them up, it's all in the woods. So getting those shots with them in the woods with the guitars, going all out, going super metal was awesome. That's exactly what they wanted. The Devil Wears Prada hanging out with their homies at Warped Tour, and I'm pretty sure that 5150 is passed out. Working for Peavy, getting that lifestyle shot of them just hanging out at Warped Tour. This is the hanging out at Warped Tour shot. Clown always looks awesome. It's really important that when you have someone with such a powerful look, what they're holding, if it's an endorsement photo, doesn't get lost in the shot. So instead of him holding them down to the side, holding them like this, I have them really out there so you can see the logo, you can see everything, and those are sticks that were custom made by him, made for him. So it's really important to get those in there while getting his character, and how much character he exudes with just wearing a mask is insane. For Motionless in White, I didn't necessarily need Angelo's entire face in there, and I like that he has that black paint on his face, so I had him grab paint and have it run down the stick. And of course, you have the band logo in there, you have his name in there, so you know who it is without having his face in there, and that's what was used for the ad. And then the following year, we decided to put his whole face in there because it's an excellent face to have in an ad. Oftentimes, you'll have multiple jobs on a single shoot: editorial shooting for a magazine and commercial shooting for endorsement. Here's an example of that. So I was shooting Piggy D and Rob Zombie for a magazine. This is the portrait of Piggy D, and he mentioned, hey, I got this new ESP bass. Can you do a quick shot of me for it? We'll get you paid. And I'm like, I already work with them. I can sort all that out. So yes, of course. So and this is 5 minutes getting the portrait real quick. He's handed his bass. He does those photos. They go on stage as the song starts. Photo session on location tips. Learn how to control ambient and natural lighting with your own lighting. The ambient light and sun can be additional lighting for you to work with, or it can be blocked out completely. Learn how to do both. If you're shooting with strobe, your f-stop and power of lighting is directly tied together. I'll explain that in more detail in a bit. While your ISO is your general brightness, and your shutter speed controls the amount or lack of ambient lighting you decide to let in. We're going to go in depth with that in a bit, because I feel like that could be confusing to some people. If you're shooting with LED lighting, you can immediately see what your lights are doing and how much light you need to achieve the look you want to get. There's not as much guesswork, test shot, micro adjustments, test shot. You just lock it in, and there's where it is. The location of your shoot can dictate how you light and shoot your set. You want to shoot to complement a location. If you have a very dark and evil location, you want it to be shadowy. You don't want to blast it with light everywhere. If you have a very bright and colorful light location, you want to add to the lighting rather than take away from it. Need location options at a venue, but you don't know the area? Ask someone at the venue. They could tell you, oh, there's this closed off room. I got the key. I'll let you in. It looks awesome. Check it out. See if it'll work for your photo shoot. Sometimes you're let into locations that aren't available to anyone else, even some of the staff of the venue, which is awesome. With the right lighting, angle, and pose, you can make any location work for what you want to achieve. And sometimes you'll have to, because you'll have very little to work with. So here's a shot where all we had was the back of a truck. And I shot Megadeth there, having one strobe going back behind them towards the back of the truck, one strobe pointing at them. You can see on their feet the leading lines coming toward me, and then one light at them to light them, giving that kind of full depth of lighting. And that's how to make the shot successful and have them surrounded by metal. A metal band surrounded by metal, go figure. And this ended up being one of their main photos for years, which was awesome. When you're on a festival date and there's nothing but buses, don't be afraid to shoot by the buses. You're on a tour. You're at a festival. It shows exactly what's going on. So having the shot of Mitch surrounded by buses is such a we're on a festival, we're on tour kind of shot. Another shot where it's all lighting from above. If you see the panels above her, it's just fully lit up here. I didn't want dark shadows under her chin. I didn't want everything to go into shadow. I wanted her lit. So I just took a couple of those pavo tubes, popped them on white, popped them right in front of her, and gave a little bit of an angle to them. And then you get this beautiful full lighting. You don't have the dark shadows. Everything's kind of filled in. 30-second photo shoots. Learn how to do them. They will happen. For Slipknot, doing a Vic first shot, they wanted to shoot with their new drums, which they got that day. Those metal drums behind them, they got that day. I knew I would have a very limited amount of time. I did my test shot with my assistant. When Slipknot got there, they can't hear me. They have a mask on and they have in-ears, meaning earplugs with monitors in them over their ears, and they're hearing sound check happening while they got into set. I posed them very quickly using mirroring. I take this shot, I look down, nailed it. Okay, couple more shots, look down, look up, they're gone, the drums are gone, the drums behind them are gone, the screen to the right is gone, they're on stage, and the intro music is playing. 30 seconds flat. Got very, very few got very, very few photos. The first shot is the one that nailed it. The first shot is the one that got to the ad. So make sure to nail your first shot, because that's the one that might be the most important to you, especially in those 1 minute, 30-second, 2 clicks kind of photo shoots. Always show back of camera to the person you're photographing. So here is a photo shoot I did with Soen last year, and Soen's one of a band I like quite a bit. So in doing a magazine shoot, I showed them back of camera and they go, "Whoa, that looks killer. If we paid you, could you do some photos for us? We need some new photos." I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And they're like, "We're gonna go change into something better." I'm like, "All right, go for it." They change, we did the shots, and it's in their new album. Their new record, you pull it out, that record sleeve is my photo on there. Killer to have your photo on, in an album that you're gonna like with a band you like and you get paid to do it. Again, I was being paid by the magazine, but then I get paid twice because the band also paid me to do that. Shooting with Watain. Here's a situation where I shot Watain on their first US tour, and they're like, "We don't shoot in corpse paint," meaning like you'll see in a second, with American photographers. We just shoot in our rock gear. And I wanted to shoot them in corpse paint because they look cool. That's what they wear on stage. It looks awesome. And that's what I'm into, the black metal stuff. So I did these shots. I showed them back of camera, and they're just like, "You actually know what you're doing? This is awesome. Yes, you may shoot us in corpse paint." Now, I don't know if other photographers in the US have shot them in corpse paint since, but this is the shot. And let me tell you, that blood is real and it smells. Yeah, real blood. The world is your studio. How to control your environment and turn any location into a studio. Learning how to control your environment with lighting is vital when shooting on location. Backgrounds make for a great light block, but when you don't have one, you can use lighting to your advantage, especially directional lighting. By using directional lighting to cut out spill, you can control your environment, which, depending on the venue of the shoot, can be very cluttered with a stage, with a bar, with gear everywhere. By overpowering the ambient lighting, you can control the lighting completely. You can control the sun. So control when you're shooting a strobe. When you're using strobes, your ISO is your general range of brightness you want to use for the shoot. Maybe you have to change it depending on what f-stop you want to be at, but that's just your general range of brightness you have. Your f-stop is directly related to the lighting power and lighting brightness. So whatever your lighting's hitting them at, that's what your f-stop is going to adjust to be and what you want it to be. Your f-stop is not going to change unless you change the power of your light. Your shutter speed controls the ambient lighting, so the lighting around them, the sun, the sky, that's your shutter speed. So if you want ambient lighting to be brighter, you drop your shutter speed and then the ambient lighting will be brighter. And this is the same with shooting on stage and shooting with a strobe. As you drop your shutter speed, the stage lights come in more. Your f-stop and ISO will remain the same because your f-stop is tied to your strobe and your ISO is your general brightness of where you want to be. If you want less ambient light, shoot faster, shoot a faster shutter speed. So if I want the sky to go dark, I'm going to up my shutter speed a bit. Your f-stop and ISO remain the same. Control LED. If you're shooting with LED, it simplifies the science of lighting as you don't need to do as many test shots or make as many micro adjustments. What you see is what you get. It will look exactly like what you see when you take the photo. So as you set those LEDs, the brightness, the color temperature, the colors, that's exactly what it's going to look like when you go click. Your ISO, shutter speed, and f-stop are variable, and you can set them however you want to achieve the look you want to capture. Your LED lighting companies generally have an app on the phone to control their lighting. Learn how to use them. They're going to save you so much time in setup and preparation and changes and beyond. I can't tell you how awesome it is to have all my lights set up, press a button, and the lights change to what I want them to be. Press them again, they change to what I want them to be for the next set. So amazing. I can turn off and turn on the lights. Amazing to do that from your phone rather than going to each individual thing. Shooting the Who in the middle of a venue. As you'll see in the BTS on the left, there's a stage behind them. There's all these cases behind them. There's a bar behind them. But because I'm shooting directional lighting straight down, the light is directly on the band and nowhere else. It's not spilling onto anything else around them. It looks like a studio shot. Same thing, but adding some side lights to get more lighting on them, to add a little bit more separation, adding them far enough back and making sure those lights aren't hitting anything around them, like the wall, the cases, the stage. Just by having all the light pointed towards the subject, and this is more of a 45-degree angle than from above, lighting wise, as you'll see on the left, because it's not hitting anything else behind them, it looks like a studio shot. And that's all in controlling your environment. Controlling the lighting with the background. Battle Beast was on stage behind Camelot, setting up, getting their lights all set, and I needed to block those. So I brought up the black background, shot at a 45-degree angle with my light, and got that really dark shot of, well, every member of the band, but this is a shot of Tommy there. And just blocking that light made it so that light didn't affect my shot whatsoever. Shooting vampires everywhere in direct sunlight against a concrete wall. They looked at this and they're like, man, we're vampires. We can't look like we've been photographed in the sun. I'm like, don't worry. It'll look like nighttime. I got you. And just using a hard light. This is a beauty dish from above at 50%, knocking it out and completely circumventing any effects the sun would have on this shoot. You can't tell the sun's out. The sun has no effect on this photo. And that's just in shooting with a strobe at 50% with a hard light. And there's the shot. Winds of Plague, taken in direct sunlight in a parking lot. F8, ISO 100 at 1/200, shooting fast to make the sky go dark, and things that are not Photoshop. This is not Photoshop. This is just lighting, and hitting them with hard lighting instead of soft lighting because I want that high contrast, hard shadows. I want them very bright so I can really bring that sky down and make it darker. In this moment, God mode photo shoot. This is on the interior of the album. If you buy it, this is at like 3 or 4 a.m. So I'm shooting with a bunch of tubes. There's a condor light in the window, adding that like nighttime light. And there's a couple of lights in the venue. And all I did was shoot a little bit darker, underexpose a little bit to have that kind of, Game of Thrones cinematic kind of look to the shot. Photo session in studio tips. If shooting on a black background, make sure to use a backlight or rim lighting to separate your subject from the background and add depth, especially if they're wearing all black. And I'm constantly shooting bands that are wearing black on black on black with a black background with dark lighting. Take a step back and shoot tighter to get more of your background in frame. So if you notice you're shooting and you're getting a lot of background not in the shot, or the shot's missing some background, take a step back, zoom in, or get a tighter lens. Have your subject as close to the background as possible without killing the backlighting or rim lighting if you are missing background in your shots. Again, if you're taking your shots in studio and you find the background's not filling your frame, get the background to push back, get the band to push back a little bit. Control your white background by moving directional lighting away from the background. So if you want your white to go a little bit gray, I'll take my light and move it back a little bit. You can use fog or atmosphere. Sorry, got ahead of myself. What I find is white paper works far better than white fabric because it reflects light, so it goes pure white. Black fabric works way better than black paper. The black paper reflects light, so it doesn't go pure black, but black fabric soaks in light, so you'll get that pure black you want. And those are just my preferences. Use whatever works for you, but for me, white paper, black fabric. If you can use fog or atmosphere, and there are some locations where you can't because you can set off fire alarms, and that does happen, it can add to the overall look of the shoot. It can add a sheet of diffusion to your light. It can blend the lighting behind them, blend the coloring behind them. It's the band, not the background, that makes the shot interesting while shooting in studio. Get the best shots possible out of them with lighting variety, direction, and posing. So here we have the original Hollywood vampire, Alice Cooper, shot with 3-point lighting with a little bit of light spilling onto the curtains behind him, because I really wanted to show the curtains. I really wanted that sort of texture in there, and then I wanted him to separate from the curtains, so you have that light on him, adding that rim lighting so he doesn't just blend in. And this I believe to be the greatest photobomb in the history of photobombs. As I'm photographing him, Johnny Depp was walking behind him, kind of trolling him. And Alice was like, something behind me is happening, and it's a Depp, isn't it? Motionless and on a white background, motionless and white on a white background, making sure you have that all around lighting so they're getting that separation from the background. And here's a BTS shot of that, having those rim lights on the side, the hard light up front, the leg lights for the full body shots, so they don't become black blobs on a white background and they have detail in everything. Robert Englund shot on this metal wall. You can see his gray sweater would blend into the wall and you would lose it if you didn't have that 3-point lighting, adding that rim lighting around him, adding that separation. Doyle, for this, he shot on a white background and his chin's down, and I brought the light back away from the background, probably a couple feet. And then the cool thing about shooting on a white background is it will bounce light back up if someone has their chin down, if you have the white background out far enough. So I have it out far enough where I know that light's going to bounce back in and fill in his eyes a little bit so you can actually see his eyes and they don't go pure black. And that's how you get that gradient background from dark gray to light gray. If you have a large mod, which I love shooting large mods, I'm usually shooting 4 feet or larger, you can light as many people as possible if you have the light far enough away from them. Using the Matthew stand I use for everything, I'm able to have this light so far above in this moment, and the Blood Girls, I can light 8 people with a single light. And here's the final shot, and it's smooth lighting around all of them. If the stand didn't go high enough, I wouldn't be able to light all of them. Battle Beast, adding that green gel behind her to add that separation to the background. I feel like if it didn't have that green behind her, it wouldn't be as successful of a shot. Using directional lighting on a white background, again, getting that fashiony feel with Lilith Czar to offset the white to gray. And here's a BTS using the ProPhoto collapsible beauty dish to really get that hard light right here and get that really high fashion kind of look. Danny Trejo, shooting with lighting from above, but shooting at a little bit of an angle. So rather than the lighting behind him being circular, it kind of gets bullet shaped, which I thought was perfect for Danny Trejo. Jerry Only, again, adding that separation with that light behind him so his hands pop out from the background rather than blend into them. Imperial Triumphant, adding that red gel behind him, adding that red light behind him, adds all the detail that you would lose if you had no lighting behind them. If there was no light behind them, you would lose everything by their shoulders. It would all be blended into darkness. So that gives you all of this shape and gives you all of those shapes you want to have in the shot. Mixing color temperature, so changing your camera to 3000K and all your lights are set to 5500K, you can get this blue kind of hue to your shots, that cinematic kind of vibe to it. And I always like doing that. And of course, the smoke will soak that up when you have smoke in there. Using a cob main and lots of tubes in the back and using a lot of atmosphere, getting that fire kind of look like they're in a room on fire with smoke everywhere. And that's where the smoke will really soak up that color. Cob main and doubled up tubes, same sort of thing. You can see the lighting kind of matching his arms there with the tubes being there, and I doubled up on them so they would really take that shape and have that kind of U shape to them. Cobs and mats and tubes, I really wanted a lot of red all around them. Everything is set to red, so I wanted the hair lights having the mats up here, or the flats up here, having the tubes on the side lighting them, the tubes behind them, having a little bit of smoke coming in from the side, and just making that work. Randy surrounded by red, and you're going to see what the set looked like in a moment. For this one, I wanted to make sure he didn't just have rim lighting on him, but the guitar did too. So I have floor tubes. I have tubes set on the floor as well, adding that rim lighting to the guitar and to the neck of the guitar. So you really have that separating from his body so the guitar doesn't blend into his body too much. And then here's what that set looked like, sans the triangle behind him. I just did a double light behind him, but for this we use a triangle. Added the atmosphere for this shot, and that was the album cover for Blood 1983. Now, a lot of times you do photo shoots and it ends up on multiple covers from one photo shoot. So having these 3 different looks with Motionless, having the fire set, the purple set, and the white set, you have all three covers. And this was supposed to be three covers, and I knew I was going to get three sets out of it. Same thing with Ghost when we shot the three covers. Pro tip, have your subject hold the lighting for an entirely different dynamic. For this, you're opposing the subject, but also posing the lighting. So here's a shot of Andy from Black Veil Brides holding lighting and just lighting himself. And a lot of that is me saying, you know, turn this light this way a little bit, turn this light this way a little bit, bring it out just a little bit, bring your face in a little bit. So it adds a different dynamic. It's a little more difficult because you're posing so much more. So Christina Scabia holding the light. I feel like the first time anyone gets a tube, what they do is a Star Wars shoot. With tubes, you can create endless shapes for lighting and for catch lights. So for this shot, I wanted to do 7 dust, and I did the 15Cs and the 30Cs to make a 7D in his eyes. And if you look closely at his eyes, you'll see 7D right there, which I thought was perfect for 7 dust. For BVB, making the V behind him, not only in the shot as a practical light, but as an effect that's in the shot that adds to the shot as a prop. Zeal and Ardor. The best thing you could do with Zeal and Ardor is inverted crosses and have that really cool slide lighting. So not only are they practical lights, but they're also props within the shot. Making a crazy shape, getting all of these different shapes for the God Mode album cover for In This Moment and for their music video for The Purge. Look for opportunities anywhere you can to bring your camera. So here's a situation where AFI were doing a show at Amoeba, and if you bought their album, their record for $30, you could go to the show. I asked if I could bring my camera. I was going to buy the record anyway. So I brought my camera, bought the record, took these photos, posted them as soon as I got back to where I was staying in LA, and AFI reposted them immediately. Then I got hit up by Kerrang and Metal Hammer, hey, we want to buy photos from you. Okay, Kerrang, Metal Hammer hit me up. Metal Hammer, Kerrang hit me up. That's cool. Just give us different photos. And they both paid $300 for the photos. So I paid $30 to get $600. So always look for those unique opportunities. Affirmations are important, especially when coming from your heroes. So this was a situation where I was doing a photo shoot with Megadeth, and then he was being interviewed with Scott Ian by the editor of Metal Hammer. And although I made the mistake of diving right into photography, not having a backup plan, a job where I could kind of do this and make it work and not struggle as long as I did, and I would have struggled far less if I was smart about it, but I was dumb and I don't care. I just dove into photography and stayed in it. And one of the things he said, they were asking, if Megadeth didn't work, what would you do? And he said, there was never a plan B. There was never anything else I would ever do. I was going to do Megadeth. And if it failed, I would continue to do Megadeth. I would continue writing. I would continue doing metal. I would continue doing what I know because I don't know anything else. And I wouldn't want to do anything else. And my passion isn't anywhere else. And I'm just like, oh, I feel that. That's my affirmation, man. And then the final photo, I wanted to give you Dave Mustaine with a puppy because it's Dave Mustaine and a puppy. Awesome. Final tips. We all get into music photography because we're fans with cameras. So make sure you enjoy it, have fun. And no matter how deep you get into the work side of this job, never lose the fact that you're a fan and never lose the fun of being a fan. If you find yourself getting stressed out, burnt out, take a break, change up what you're doing, make a challenge for yourself using like only one lens or using only effect lenses, using only manual focus, or set a project for yourself where you're doing a group of work, anything to keep from burnout and keep the creativity flowing. Continue learning anywhere you can, as much as you can. Hopefully you're learning right here. And the only way to fail is to give up. Never give up. Yeah, that's the end of the slideshow. I know we probably have some questions. So I will end that and I will answer some questions.
We do.
Oh, wow. The
Jeremy.
light really came in.
It gave you like, it's like the godly glow coming in behind, right on time, ready for the Q&A. That was awesome, man. I could have sat here for another 3 hours I was going to let you keep going if you just kept going all day. So
Oh, I do have a 7-hour version of this.
there we go. We're gonna have to bring you we'll bring you back for the 7-hour version. We have a situational question to start off from Emily joining us on YouTube. Hi, Jeremy. What would be your tips in case you have no other choice than doing a pre-show shoot? After doors open in a tiny space backstage where it's difficult to bring lighting equipment.
You make it work. You have to make anything work. I'm so used to shooting in closets if needed. You know, you shoot in these little nothing spaces. You find the equipment that works for that. If you follow a lot of what I do, you'll see a lot of BTS. You'll see some shots I did with Catatonia where I was shooting with a very small light in order to make it work, using flat lights rather than big mods to make it work. A lot of getting a light where I need it to be is that Matthew stand I use, the mini boom rolling kit, and the runway base. The fact that it has the two long legs and the short leg, I can go right against a wall and shoot against the column, which means I can be this far away from the wall and get my shot and have a light boom to where I need it to be. That helps so much when I'm shooting in small location tubes. They take up minimal space, so they're great for shooting in tight spaces like that, like the Nanlite Pavo tubes. That's why I won't go to a shoot without them. I bring them to everything. Whereas something like a big light with a big mod might not work in a small space. But the short answer is you make it work. You do what you have to do to make the shot happen,
How is
because
it
that's your job
generally?
as a photographer.
Yeah, I mean, when you're in a situation like that, are they
Mhm.
generally more understanding? If you're not doing like, okay, we have a magazine shoot set up and it's a studio shoot and we have everything booked. If it is one of those situations where you have a couple minutes in a less than ideal setting, are the musicians generally understanding of that and they won't come in like, hey, I want to do this and this and this? Are they kind of just like, hey, we're gonna let you rock? Do you tell us what to do?
A lot of times, especially when you're doing magazine shoots, it's just you're doing what you do. If you're doing something where the band hired you, it's much more collaborative. If you're doing something that's specifically for an assignment and you have an idea and this is the concept and it's that tight, you don't have a lot of leeway. It's like this is what the editor said it has to be, and that's what it is, you know. Um, but a lot of the times it's a lot of collaboration, a lot of taking a shot, showing them back with camera and going, we love this, let's shoot more of this, or this isn't really working. Can we change this and this, and making the micro adjustments you need to make it work for them and make them happy? Because you really
Awesome.
want to make everybody on set happy. It's important.
And I guess knowing the bands, I mean, you if you're not friends, say you're shooting somebody that even you're not personally close to, you at least know of them and know how they want to be represented, how they've represented themselves. Does that help when you're going into the creative side of a shoot?
Absolutely. And that's why you always do that research on a band. If I'm going in and shooting a band I've never met before, never worked with before, I do a little bit of research. Most recently, the band I work with a lot of bands a lot. So a lot of the bands I work with are repeat customers, essentially. A band I hadn't worked with before was Cybertronic Spree. They dress up as Transformers and they play Transformers songs and covers and stuff. And I was shooting them with Max Sabbath. Max Sabbath, a band I've shot a lot, Cybertronic Spree, never before. They're in costumes. I know who the singer is. I know who the drummer is. And because I'm a super huge nerd and Transformers fan, I know exactly which each character is. So I was able to go like, okay, Shock Blast, go over here. Unicron, go over here. RC, go over here. Hot Rod, go over here. Do you have the Matrix of Leadership with you? It's just the nerdiest thing where they're like, he knows his Transformers. He did his research. It's like, yeah, yeah, 40 years of research. But yeah.
That's awesome. Marauder is asking, how do you start getting commissions? Do you approach the bands directly? Can you give us a tip or two for people who want to start working on commission work?
Absolutely. You should be charging for your work, period. You shouldn't be doing anything for free. But it's tricky when you're first starting. It's difficult to say, hey, I want to get paid for this, and you don't have a portfolio that shows it. So it's important to start working with kind of local bands who need the shots. Have a rate sheet. Figure out what you want in that rate sheet, what you want to offer bands, and start sending it out. If you are getting yes every time you send your rates out, you need to raise your rates. They're not high enough. You should be a little bit scared to send your rates out, to be like, I might price them out just a little bit and get paid. It's up to you when you feel you want to start charging, and you should be charging if you're doing work that they're using. If they want to use it and they're using it, you should be paid for that. You should be compensated for that. In terms of what you should charge, that's all up to you. You have to kind of figure that out on your own, but make sure your expenses are fully covered. You shouldn't be paid for a photo shoot and it doesn't cover your expenses for the shoot, including time, parking, the ticket. If you have to pay for a ticket, you shouldn't have to pay for a ticket, and whatever else goes into it.
Okay.
Hopefully
So
that helps.
yeah, does this still hold true? Because I know it used to be like if you wanted to shoot in the pit, you either had to know somebody, or a lot of times it's you have to be shooting for a publication. They won't let you in unless it's like, where are the pictures going? We're not just going to fill your portfolio.
Very, very true. When you're shooting a show, you need to have a photo pass, and the photo pass, well, especially if there's a barricade. For little bar shows, probably not, and that's a good place to practice and to hone in your skills. Going to those shows that you don't need a photo pass and you can bring your camera in. But for bigger shows, you definitely need a photo pass. And when you contact the publicist, they're going to ask, who are you shooting for? And if you're not shooting for an outlet, if you don't have someone you're working for, it's difficult to get those photo passes. But I will say, if you're honest and you're like, hey, I don't have an outlet. I'm working on my portfolio. I'm just starting, or I'm just getting moving in this. Is there any way you can help me out? Sometimes publicists have the leeway where they can, and they'll hook up photographers every now and again. But generally you need an outlet. So what you should do is start contacting outlets right away that you want to work with and say, like, hey, this is what I do. This is what I want to cover. Is there any way I could work with you? If you find no luck there, start your own outlet. That's what I did. When I was a kid, I started chaosmetal.com. I started doing reviews, interviews, covering shows. Pardon me. And that was my in to all the shows that weren't ones I was supposed to be working. So if there was a show elsewhere and I wanted to shoot it and it wasn't part of my network already, I could say, hey, it's going to go on chaosmetal.com. I didn't wait to get an outlet to hire me. I just created my own. So that's always an option.
I love that. And I mean, I've heard that from a lot of people in the music industry where it's more about, because everybody thinks they're going to come in, they're going to be like, well, I have this, new style, or I'm great and I do this. And it's like, well, yeah, you're going up against the Jeremy Saffer. And it's like, these people have been shot by the best in the business. It doesn't matter. It's more about, are you visible? Are you coming out? Are you doing the work? Are you reaching out to people? Are you willing to start from the ground up and work your way into it? Right. It's a lot more about the visibility and getting back out there rather than, hey, I got a good portfolio.
It's a little bit about everything, and it's not a competition. It doesn't matter if the best photographer in the world photographs a band, they'll work with the photographer they want to work with, be it the best or somebody new or whatever else. But it is about getting your work out there, posting your work, getting promoted, getting those shots with the bands that will promote your work and whatnot for sure. It's important to constantly work, show that you're working, show what you're doing. And biggest pro tip I can give any photographer out there, don't complain on social networks about not getting work, because people will see that you're not getting work, see that comment and go, oh, they're not getting work. They're not getting hired. We also should not hire them. That will hurt you. Being negative on the internet, talking about other photographers negatively, that will hurt you. Avoid all of that. Just be positive, take photos, and love it.
That's great advice across the board, no matter what. I feel like we're in this like age now where you shouldn't have to say it, but people are going out there and they're ruining their careers with an Instagram story. I don't get it. We're going to close it out, Jeremy, with one final question. We saved the easiest for last. Back to the tech stuff. Autofocus or not? How do you focus when you're in a concert setting?
It varies because I have some lenses that don't have autofocus. I shoot Lens Baby. I have the Nock Deluxe 0.95. I have a couple other Zeiss lenses that are all manual focus. So manual focus is kind of new to me with Lens Baby, and that's manual focus with tilt shift. So it took a couple shows to really nail it, but now I can nail it every single time. What I will say is learn how to do both. You want to learn how to do everything. If there's anything you're not 100% on, practice it. Practice it as much as you can. If you can nail manual focus with a moving subject, a fast moving subject in low light and knock it out, you can kill it anywhere else. I'll use autofocus on my lenses that have autofocus. I'm using autofocus. On my lenses that don't have autofocus, I can't use autofocus, so I'm using manual. So if it has autofocus, I'm using it. If it has manual focus, I have to use it.
Awesome. Well, Jeremy, this was great. Look, you're always invited whenever you want to come back. As a metalhead, and Stephanie, who runs the team, is a metalhead too. It's like, man, we can't get enough of this. I mean, we got to have this on whenever. Even Danny, I think we're converting Danny. He saw that Real Blood shoot, and I think that turned him.
Oh, that smell. They'd turn anybody.
Well, a huge thank you to Jeremy Saffer. A ton of great information, a ton of awesome images, and to Nanlite for hosting this event. Jeremy, we're going to keep tabs on you. We look to seeing you back here in the future. So thank you again, man.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Definitely. And to all of our viewers out there, thank you for joining us for another round of the B&H Virtual Event Space. Catch y'all next time.